All right, guys, I just want to take a brief second and talk to you about MLA citation format and MLA paper format for our research paper that we're doing in class right now. Now, MLA stands for Modern Language Association, and it's a group that kind of decides format for papers basically that fall under the language arts area, especially as it pertains to English. So they dictate our area. In order to get points for this, if you'll take out your notebooks and label this NB, MLA citation, I need you to write down 5 things that are important to you about this PowerPoint or that are relevant to you in writing your paper. If you'll go ahead and write those down and record those, that would be great. So getting back to it though, MLA is a basic citation format that's used, and there are many different types of formats for papers and citation that can be used, and they all kind of pertain towards different fields. Now, obviously, this one applies towards language arts. It's created by the Modern Language Association. So in our language arts things and classes, we tend to use MLA. There's also APA, which stands for American Psychiatric Association. There is the AMA, which is the American Medical Association. Now, the APA is used for the soft sciences, things like psychology, things like your social studies types of classes, whereas the AMA is used for more of your hard sciences, your biologies, your medicines, those type of things. There are also 2 other styles that are called Chicago and Turabian that are important to know about. You don't necessarily have to know a lot of details, but you may have college professors who are real sticklers for it. One thing to be aware of is with these formats, especially at the college level, there are some professors that are going to be very, very heavy sticklers as far as making sure that you nail the format just right. I had a teacher take 50 points off a 100-point assignment because I didn't do it in the correct format at the college level. So definitely taught me to ask beforehand and then to make sure that I understood exactly what they wanted out of it and that I nailed the format. So that's something that you need to be aware of. As for MLA citation, the 2 things that I'm really most concerned about today are the 2 places that we often see MLA citation, that we use MLA citation in order to give credit for citations that we're using, and that is first in text, which you can see here, and then that is also in the works cited page. So those are the 2 big things that we're going to talk about, is in-text citation and the works cited page. So we'll get in depth in the works cited in a minute, but we're going to go ahead and focus on in-text citations first. I'm going to pull up another resource here that kind of helps show us how maybe we can do some of these in-text citations. If we look here, these are some examples of in-text citation and some things that we need to know. Now, there are 2 types of in-text citation: that we can cite the author's name in the text, or we can do it parenthetically. Parenthetically is just like it sounds. It's derived from the parentheses, so we use the author's name in parentheses after what we've used or quoted or borrowed or paraphrased, and we use those in parentheses, and we mention the author's name and the page number. Now, those need to correspond to an entry that's in your works cited. We talked last time about the necessity of giving credit and citing and using outside sources actually as a matter of strengthening it, not undermining, but strengthening our understanding of the paper. So what we're mainly concerned about in MLA is the author's last name as well as the page number, and usually that's enough to indicate the location needed. Now, often if we're doing web sources, there's not necessarily a page number, so we can at times use the article title if there's multiple sources by the same author. So like it says here, if the author's name is used in the sentence, we don't need to repeat it in the citation. As we scroll down here, though, we can see an example of an author's name being used in text. So we're going to quote the author Sellers here, and it says that Sellers had expressed that the market changed in the 17th century. Now, this is a paraphrase. They've taken the words of Sellers, they've put them into their own words, maybe even a summary, maybe they've shortened it down, but they've cited on the page number that it's on. Now, it's probably a summary for sure because it runs over 2 pages. So That's an example of citing with the author's name in the text. Now, they've used here the page numbers, but if we didn't have page numbers, we wouldn't necessarily have to put a citation there, and we could get away with that. Now, if we use if we don't use the author's name in the text, like here where the quote was written by Castle, right, we would put that in parentheses. It's important to understand that when we put it in parentheses, that comes before the period at the end of the sentence, but after the information. Specifically, when we have a quote, the quotation marks in this, if this were a direct quote, would go right here, the opening quotation marks, and then the final quotation marks would go after historians, and then we would put the parentheses, Castle, page 9, and then the period outside of this. This is one of the few times where you're okay to actually put your punctuation outside of the print or the quotation marks. Okay, if there's multiple works of an author, you can go ahead and indicate that here, like they've done. Also, a lot of times, an important thing to realize about it is if there's 3 or more, you can just indicate the earliest in the alphabet author, and then put et al, al, and et al indicates that basically it's that author and those people who wrote it with them, and they can find out the people who wrote it with them afterwards when they go look into the works cited. The only other thing I would say, or the only other 2 things that I want you to look at here, are corporate authors. First of all, many of you probably have pages that were authored corporately, and when you cite those, you do those a little bit different. You cite the corporate author, and then you cite the document name, okay, and the page number if it has pagination. There are also places where you can cite works with no author, and this is based on the source, right? So this would be Time Magazine, page 22, and they could go look at your work cited in the end and say, oh, Time Magazine, page 22, and they could find out the reference information that they would need. So that, in short, is in-text citation. Now you can do that with the author's name in the text, or you can do that parenthetically. Either way, those are things that can be very valuable in helping you make sure that you don't get caught up in any plagiarism issues. And this, just so I don't get caught up in any plagiarism issues, this is from the Cal State University Northridge website, and you can find this on Canvas on my website if you'd like to look at it. Next, going back to our Helios tutorial, the works cited page, and I'll scroll down a little bit to show you kind of what a works cited page looks like. This over here on the right hand side is a works cited page. A couple things that need to be said about a works cited page. Works cited pages are their own page, so even if it's only one line on the previous page, we have to hit enter all the way until we're on a new page and then start it there. At the top of the page and centered, we have the words works cited. Now they're capitalized, but we don't underline it, we don't bold it, we don't blow them up in font size. You may also notice that the spacing throughout this is maintained in a double space setting. Okay. You'll also probably notice a weird feature of it is this, what's called a hanging indent. And essentially all that means is that the first line is on the left margin. Every subsequent line of that entry is indented 1 tab. And you can see that here on all of these, but even further here where the second and third lines of this long citation are. In our works cited, we are including the works that we've cited throughout our text. This gives the reader the ability, if they want, to come back and look and say, okay, these are the works that they used in their text. Here, let's go look them up and do some further research on this issue. So there's that option for them. The hanging indent helps kind of organize it and keep entries separate, and helps it be a little bit easier to navigate for the reader. The last thing you might notice is that these are in alphabetical order, that from top to bottom these are in alphabetical order, and preserving that alphabetical order becomes really important in keeping everything in line. So those are kind of the key points about the usage of a works cited page. Let's see if we can scroll down a little bit here. You're seeing a bunch of samples of the formats for different citations. To be honest with you, I'm not going to waste your time with those things. You can find them online, plus there's enough online citation make that spending a bunch of time on this would really kind of be a waste of your time. You can go and look at these individually on those and pull those up, and we'll talk briefly about those now. If we scroll down, there are some automatic citation makers that you can use, and this gives you a warning that they're not perfect. honestly, if I can tell that you've given it a good faith effort and maybe it's a little bit out of order, maybe you're missing one or two things, I'm not going to hammer you on this. Just beware. There are teachers who will, especially professors at the college level, really be worried about this, and you got to make sure in those situations that you do what they want. Some of those easy citation creation machines include things like EasyBib, Son of Citation Machine, NightCite. Even Microsoft Word has a reference tab that you can use to build it in, and those things work and they're effective, and usually pretty helpful. Bottom line is, using outside sources in our paper only increases our credibility, only helps better convince our audience that we know what we're talking about, and show them that. And we can do that by citing our sources inside the text, as well as having a competent and complete work cited at the end of our papers. Okay. Thanks, and hopefully this helps.